At the airport check-in line, my eldest daughter leaned close and whispered, "You and Lily are basically our free nannies for this trip." For a moment, the noise of the terminal thinned into a sharp, ringing silence. The cold airport lights washed everything in a harsh glow. Her face, the stroller wheels, the scuffed tiles beneath my shoes. The words sat between us like something dropped and broken. She didn't wait for me to answer. Hannah shifted her 3-year-old onto her other hip, the child's shoes brushing against her jeans, and waved her husband forward while her 5-year-old zigzagged between our legs, nearly knocking my suitcase over. "Mom, grab Noah before he runs into someone," she added casually, as if she hadn't just reduced me and her sister to unpaid labor before we'd even reached security. I caught his hand out of instinct. It was warm and sticky, and it tightened around my fingers without looking up at me. Behind us, Lily adjusted the strap of her backpack. She didn't say a word. She rarely did when her sister talked like that. Greg stood farther ahead, motioning for us. "They want passports ready," he said, holding ours in a neat stack. "Families with strollers should move to the right." Of course they should. We slid into the line, the soundscape shifting around us, rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, the hiss from the nearby coffee kiosk. The smell of burnt espresso clung to the air. I felt Noah sway between excitement and restlessness, bouncing on his heels. Ava whined in the stroller, reaching toward a passing balloon. "Here," Greg said, placing my passport in my hand. The navy cover felt cool against my palm. "Don't lose it?" He handed Hannah hers next, then turned to Lily. "Lil, where's yours?" "In my bag," she said softly. We moved forward. The agent barely looked up. "Passport's open to the photo page," she called. "Next." Greg went first. Beep, then me. Beep. Behind us, Hannah jostled the stroller closer. "And the last?" the agent asked, glancing over our group. "Lily," Greg repeated. She already had the backpack unzipped, fingers sifting through pockets. I watched her confident expression shift. First confusion, then a tightening around her mouth. She checked again, deeper this time. "It's not here," she whispered. Hannah let out an irritated sigh. "Check properly, Lily. We're not missing this flight because you're careless." Lily dropped to her knees right there on the polished floor and emptied the bag. Items scattered, charger cords, a hoodie, a paperback, her headphones. No passport. The people behind us shifted, their impatience a physical pressure on my back. The airport lights buzzed overhead. A nearby baby cried. Someone muttered under their breath. "Ma'am," the agent said, "we can't hold the line." Noah tugged my arm. "Grandma, are we still going?" he asked, eyes wide. I couldn't answer him, not with my throat closing around every word. Lily tried every pocket again. Nothing. She sat back on her heels, breathing carefully, as if even that required effort. "I must have dropped it," she said quietly. "I'll just go home." Home. 40 minutes away without traffic. "You can't be serious," Hannah snapped. "Mom, do something. Tell her she can't ruin the trip for everyone." The agent pointed toward a small roped-off area. "You can step aside to decide. If she retrieves it and returns before boarding ends, she can still travel. Otherwise, she cannot proceed." Greg rubbed his forehead, staring at the boarding time on his watch. "We're running out of time," he murmured. Ava started crying again, louder this time. Noah pressed against my side, confused. Lily stood slowly, backpack limp in her hands. Her expression was calm, too calm for someone who had just upended a vacation. And something inside me shifted, a tiny click of awareness. Not understanding yet, but the sense that this moment was larger than losing a document. "Ma'am," the agent said again, firm now, "you need to choose whether your group proceeds or steps out of line." My family stared at me, waiting, expecting, and the choice stretched out in front of me. 2 narrow paths, each lined with the consequences I'd carried for years without naming. The line pressed forward, and I felt the pressure of a decision I wasn't sure I was ready to make. Hannah pushed the stroller toward the little roped-off seating area beside security, her movements sharp, impatient. Unbelievable, she muttered as she parked it. How do you lose a passport between the car and the counter? I swear, Mom, this is exactly why we needed everyone to be organized today. The words pricked under my skin. I lowered myself onto one of the cold metal chairs, the laminate armrests digging lightly into my elbows. Noah climbed into the seat beside me, kicking his light-up sneakers against the edge. Ava fussed, tugging at the stroller straps. Lily stood a few feet away, backpack dangling from her right hand. I'm sorry, she said, voice barely above the noise of the terminal. I really did have it. You had one job, Hannah snapped. One. And now you're going to make all of us miss our flight. Hannah, I warned softly. She threw up her hands. What? We planned this. We spent money. We can't get back. You know how long the kids have been looking forward to this? A nearby couple glanced over. I felt my face heat, the humiliation layering itself along my collarbone, settling heavy there. Greg moved closer, lowering his voice. We still have time, he said. Either she goes home to get the passport or we all go home. Those are the choices. Lily's shoulders slumped slightly, but her voice remained steady. Too steady. You should go, she said. I'll Uber home. You can't be alone for a week, Greg said automatically. I'm fine, she replied. There was something in the quiet way she said it, something that made me look twice. Hannah rolled her eyes. Oh, sure, she's fine. Meanwhile, we're about to lose a whole vacation because she can't keep track of a document. We haven't lost anything yet, Greg said, but his voice wavered. A security supervisor approached, adjusting his badge. Folks, final boarding is in about 25 minutes. If some of you are still planning to travel today, you need to clear security soon. Thank you, Greg said. The man nodded and walked away, leaving us beneath the flat gray airport light, all of us suspended in a moment that felt both rushed and impossibly slow. Hannah turned to me. Mom, we're going. You're coming, right? We can't handle 2 kids through TSA without help. My heart pinched at the casual certainty in her voice, as if my attendance were not a choice but an obligation, as if I were already assigned to their needs. I looked at Lily. She wasn't crying. She wasn't pleading. She just stood there watching us with an expression that almost looked like relief. Mom, she said quietly, please go. I'll be okay. Her calmness unsettled something inside me. It didn't match the situation at all. It felt like she had stepped into a different script while the rest of us clung to the old one. Noah tugged my arm. Grandma, we're gonna miss the airplane, he whispered anxiously. Ava began to cry again, her small fists pounding against the stroller tray. Hannah bounced her once, annoyed. Hannah, I said. Stop talking to her like she's trying to ruin this. Well, what else would you call it? She shot back. Accident or not, she's messed everything up. She's standing right there, I said sharply. That stunned her for a moment. She turned away, pulling out her phone. I saw her thumbs moving rapidly and the faint glow of posted words reflected off her screen before she tilted it away. Greg stepped closer to me. We'll talk about all this when we get home, he murmured. I know what's going on. I know why she's doing this. The comment struck me sideways. What do you mean? I asked, but he was already turning back toward the gate. We need to go, he said. They're about to close. The overhead speaker crackled. Final boarding call for passengers on Flight 247 to Los Angeles. That sentence sealed everything. I looked again at Lily. Her fingers squeezed the backpack strap. She gave a tiny nod, as if answering a question I hadn't spoken aloud. Something in that gesture settled the debate inside me. You go home, I told her softly. Lock the door. Call me when you get there. Surprise flickered across her face, followed by something like understanding. I will. Hannah sighed dramatically. Finally. Let's go. We walked back toward security. The cold tiles reflected lines of fluorescent light, making the world feel sharp-edged. At the podium again, the agent scanned our passports. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound felt like a hinge closing. As we gathered our bins for the conveyor belt, I heard Hannah mutter under her breath while typing something onto her phone. If she posts anything fishing for sympathy, I swear. Her voice faded as she stepped forward, leaving me momentarily in the lull between metal detectors and the chaotic churn of travelers. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Lily. I hadn't even opened it yet, but something in me tightened. A quiet, instinctive warning, because I knew before reading it that whatever she'd written was going to shift the entire ground beneath my feet. I reached for my phone as the security line nudged forward, the message waiting like a held breath. The phone was still buzzing in my hand, but before I even looked at the screen, something inside me began to loosen, like a thread being pulled from far back in my memory. The present dissolved around the edges, and the past rose up with an insistence I couldn't stop. It always did when tension pressed too hard on the surface of my life, and it started, strangely enough, with a single object, the hallway nightlight. It was a cheap thing, plastic, beige, nothing remarkable. It hummed faintly when plugged in, casting a small, muted circle of yellow on the carpet outside the girls' bedroom. For years, it was the only soft light in our home, the one steady glow in long seasons of exhaustion. I used to stand there in the middle of the night, leaning against the doorframe, watching tiny breaths rise and fall in mismatched blankets. That pool of light felt like the only place I existed fully, not as a cashier, not as a bill payer, not as the one juggling groceries and rent, but simply as a mother, trying to keep two small lives steady in a world that never gave me much room. Back then, it was just me and Hannah. I was 23 when I brought her home from the hospital. Our apartment had thin blue carpet that curled at the edges, and the kitchen light flickered like it was shivering. I worked the evening shift at a grocery store, coming home with wrists aching from breaking down cardboard and shoes that carried the smell of bleach no matter how long they sat by the door. We lived paycheck to paycheck, stretching cans of soup over 2 nights and hoping the landlord wouldn't raise rent again. In the summers, a box fan sat in the living room window, rattling to life whenever the air got too still. The sound of that fan, thin, mechanical, persistent, was another anchor of those years. It was the soundtrack of my late nights balancing the checkbook with a dull pencil, the hum blending into the buzz of the nightlight down the hall. Every morning before the sun fully rose, I would tuck baby Hannah into her stroller and walk her to the sitters. The air was crisp then, with the smell of asphalt still cool from the night. She'd grip my thumb with her whole hand, refusing to let go until I coaxed her fingers open. The early school buses rumbled in the distance, and I used to imagine a future where we didn't live so close to the edge of everything: bills, exhaustion, fear. One afternoon after a long shift, the sitter handed her to me with a sigh. "She cried a lot today," she said. "She clings too much. You might want to set boundaries." I held my baby closer, feeling her tiny body melt into my shoulder. I didn't say anything back. I just walked home, the hallway nightlight already glowing faintly, even though the sun hadn't fully set. It was a strange comfort, its steady hum, its small patch of warmth. I'd stand there and think, this is the center of my world. When Greg came into our lives, things changed in small but meaningful ways. He wasn't wealthy, and he wasn't flashy. He was a mechanic with grease under his fingernails and hands rough from years of turning wrenches. But he took Hannah to the park on Sundays, pushing her on the swing until she giggled herself breathless. He fixed the cupboard doors in my tiny kitchen without being asked. He understood what it meant to work hard without applause. We married at City Hall. Hannah stood between us, her small hand in mine, her pink dress slightly too big. Our honeymoon was a pizza eaten in the car with the windows down. We moved into a slightly bigger apartment after that. Still cheap carpet, still thin walls, but there was a second bedroom. I plugged the same old nightlight into the same spot relative to the bedroom door. It hummed like always. Somehow, that made the new space feel less frightening. When Lily came along years later, I was older, more tired, but also somehow steadier. Her birth felt like a second chance at gentleness. I remember lying awake the night after I found out I was pregnant, listening to the ceiling fan click as it rotated. Life always stretched thin around us, but I believed we could make it work. Still, the sacrifices sharpened. When Hannah hit high school, the pressures changed their shape. She wanted the expensive field trips, the name-brand shoes, the sense of belonging that came with them, but we didn't have that kind of money. My paycheck was stretched across rent, insurance, gas, and groceries. I took on extra shifts. I cleaned offices at night twice a week. The fluorescent lights in the hallways buzzed like they resented being awake past 9. In one office, there was a framed photo of a family at Disneyland, matching shirts, castle behind them. I would empty the trash bin under that desk, the image catching my eye every time. One day, I told myself, one day I'll give my girls something like that, something bright. But bright things came slowly. When prom season arrived, Hannah stood in the living room with a picture of the dress she wanted saved on her phone. "Everyone else is getting one," she said. "I can't show up in something cheap." I didn't argue. Instead, I took the little velvet pouch from my dresser drawer, the one with my mother's earrings and the thin gold bracelet she'd given me when I turned 18. The metal smelled faintly of old perfume and memory. I sold it all. The pawnshop owner weighed each piece carefully, his fingers leaving small smudges on the gold. That money became a dress, a hair appointment, a small miracle I didn't explain. Hannah never asked how I managed it, and I never told her. Then came her first child, then her second. The first time she called me crying from the hospital, I dropped everything and drove across town, heart pounding. When she needed me at 2 a.m., whether for real emergencies or for a break from motherhood's chaos, I went. When she and her husband wanted a date night, I said yes. I said yes so often it became less a word and more a reflex. Meanwhile, Lily grew up quieter, more observant. I'd find her reading on the back steps when the house was noisy with toddlers. I'd see her glance at me when Hannah barked orders or assumed I would rearrange my life on command. One summer evening, after watching the kids for just an hour that turned into the whole afternoon, I found Lily sitting outside with her backpack beside her, the sky turning gold. "You okay?" I asked, lowering myself next to her. She shrugged. "Yeah, I just had plans. Nothing big." "I'm sorry," I said softly. She didn't answer. The air smelled like cut grass and heat settling into cool. Through the open window, I could hear the white noise machine running in the spare room, another version of that old rattling fan from years ago. I realized then that Lily was learning something from the pattern of our family, something I hadn't intended to teach. She was learning that one person's sacrifices could become everyone else's expectation. She was learning that the quiet child adjusts, that the dependable one absorbs, that the mother who always bends is easier to lean on than the one who says no. The nightlight remained plugged in all those years, even when they were too old to need it. I think I kept it more for myself, a reminder of the nights I stood guard, of the years when my worth was measured by how well I could keep the darkness at bay. Now, in the airport's cold, fluorescent glare, with boarding calls echoing overhead and my phone buzzing with Lily's unknown message, I felt that old hum again, not in my ears, but somewhere deep in my chest. A reminder of all the moments that had shaped us into who we were now. A reminder that the quiet one sees everything. A reminder that eventually, even the softest light reveals things you didn't expect. The first few days after they left, the house felt strangely balanced. No cartoons blaring from the TV, no tiny socks in the laundry, no last-minute, "Mom, can you watch them just for an hour?" texts. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the stairs when I went up at night, the quiet buzz of that same old nightlight in the hallway outside Lily's room. Lily moved softer through the house than usual, like she didn't want to wake something. On the second night, I found her at the kitchen table, laptop open, the glow turning her face a pale blue. A half-finished bowl of cereal sat next to her, the milk gone warm. "You okay?" I asked, leaning on the doorframe. She clicked out of whatever she'd been looking at too fast. "Yeah, just reading," she said. The silence between us stretched, not hostile, but heavy. I knew that if I asked, "Reading what?" she might tell me. I also knew I wasn't sure I wanted to know, not yet. So I just filled the kettle, the rush of water loud in the quiet kitchen. My phone buzzed on the counter. The lock screen lit up with a notification from social media. Hannah's name sat under a photo of 2 kids in mouse ears, grinning in front of the Disneyland castle. The caption, "Making magical memories." Even if some people bailed and left us hanging with all the work, comments were already piling up. That's so selfish of them. Some kids just don't appreciate what parents do. At least you have your mom there to help. You're so lucky. I stared at the screen until the kettle clicked off behind me. The kitchen suddenly felt colder. "Mom?" Lily's voice floated in from the table. "Is something burning?" I looked over at the kettle, steam still curling from the spout. "No," I said, "just forgot it was on." I locked the phone and turned it face down on the counter. Hannah called halfway through the week. I was folding laundry on the couch, the TV playing quietly in the background, though I wasn't really watching. "So," she started without greeting, "how's the staycation?" Her voice had that light, brittle brightness I'd heard many times, usually right before a complaint. In the background, I could hear the distant roar of a crowd, some theme park music playing, a child crying somewhere nearby. "It's quiet," I said. "How are the kids holding up?" "Tired," she said, "cranky, overstimulated, you know." There was a shuffle, then a sigh. Honestly, this would have been so much easier if Lily had just done her part. I pressed my fingers into the edge of a towel. The fabric soft but digging into my thumb anyway. "Her part?" I repeated. "She was supposed to help," Hannah said. "We brought her on this trip so she could spend time with them, with us. Instead, she lost her passport and left us to juggle everything ourselves." I thought of Lily's calm eyes at the airport, the way she'd told me to go, the tiny, almost imperceptible relief in her shoulders when I said she could stay home. "You brought her on this trip?" I asked slowly. "You weren't supposed to be on this trip at all, remember?" Silence, just for a beat. Then a little laugh. "Oh, come on, Mom," she said. "You know we were going to end up going at some point. It just made sense to coordinate. Besides, the kids adore Disneyland. I thought you'd be happy we all got to go together." Happy. I looked at the stack of folded clothes, my shirts, Lily's jeans, laid out on the coffee table. The TV flickered in front of us, some cooking show host chopping vegetables with manic cheer. "It would have been nice to know ahead of time," I said. "You're being dramatic," she replied. "You got a free trip out of it." Free. My chest tightened. "Hannah, I've watched your kids for years without asking for anything," I said. "This was supposed to be Lily's graduation gift." "And she ruined it," Hannah said. "For herself, not for us. We're here. We're tired. We're dealing with meltdowns and lines and cranky toddlers. So maybe don't make it sound like I'm some villain for trying to give my family a nice vacation, okay?" The word villain scraped across my nerves, mostly because it told me exactly how she'd framed this conversation in her head. "I didn't say you were," I replied. "You didn't have to," she shot back. "It's in your tone." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The noise of the park filled the silence on her end, laughter, music, a baby wailing louder now. On my end, the house hummed with the soft sounds of the air conditioner and Lily turning a page in the next room. "I'm hanging up," Hannah finally said, exhaling. "I have to get them ready for the parade. Just next time, maybe try to teach Lily some responsibility instead of always smoothing things over for her." The line went dead before I could answer. I sat there, phone in my hand, the word responsibility ringing in my ears like it had been flung at me instead of her. When they came back, the house lost its fragile balance almost immediately. The front door flew open late Sunday afternoon. Suitcases rolled in. Voices spilled over each other. "Grandma!" Noah shouted, racing through the hallway. His shoes left faint black streaks on the floor. "We saw the fireworks and a dragon, and I threw up on a ride." A moment later, Hannah pushed in a suitcase with one hand and guided a sleepy Ava with the other. Greg followed, carrying 2 bags and looking like he hadn't slept in days. I stepped out from the kitchen. "Welcome back," I said, forcing a smile. Hannah gave me a quick once-over. "You look rested," she said. "Must be nice." The words landed with a dull thud. She didn't say it with a joke in her voice. She said it like an accusation. "I'm glad you had a good time," I said, ignoring the sting. "Did everything go smoothly?" "Oh, sure," she said, dropping a bag by the couch. "If you call waiting in lines for hours with 2 cranky kids and no help smooth." She shot a look at Lily, who had just come down the stairs. "Nice of you to finally join the conversation, by the way." Lily's hand tightened on the banister. "I just came from my room," she said. "Exactly," Hannah replied. "You got a whole week to yourself while we actually did the hard work." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Greg rubbed the back of his neck, eyes on the floor. "Maybe we can sit down and talk about it later," he muttered. "About what?" Hannah snapped. "About how we wasted money on a plane ticket and park pass for someone who couldn't manage to keep track of a passport for 6 hours? There's nothing to talk about." Lily went very still. I watched her face. No tears, no outburst, just a kind of quiet withdrawal, like a door being closed from the inside. "In my defense," Lily said softly, "I never agreed to be a babysitter for the whole trip." Hannah barked out a laugh. "Oh, please. You knew exactly why you were coming. Did you think Mom and Dad could handle everything alone? You think we're made of money, bringing you just for fun?" I felt the humiliation bloom hot in my chest, not just for Lily, but for myself, for the way my name had apparently been used as currency. "We paid for her ticket," I reminded her, my voice low, "with our money. This was our gift." "And you threw it away," Hannah replied. "If you're mad at anyone, be mad at her." She said it like she was doing me a favor. The financial part came up 2 nights later. Greg and I were at the kitchen table after dinner, the room lit by the single overhead fixture that always seemed a little too bright. The kids had gone home. Lily was upstairs. The dishwasher hummed softly. He slid a piece of paper toward me, a credit card bill printed from the computer. Numbers marched across the page, unforgiving. "We went over," he said, trying for a reasonable tone. "Between the extra meals, the hotel charges, and rebooking fees, when we thought maybe we could get Lily another flight if she found the passport, it added up." I scanned the total. It was higher than I wanted to see. "We'll pay it off," I said. "We always do." He hesitated. "Hannah thinks Lily should contribute." I set the paper down slowly. "Lily didn't go," I said. "She still cost us money," he replied. "The ticket, the pass, the card company doesn't care who used what." I looked at him. "And you?" I asked. "What do you think?" He folded his hands. "I think she did it on purpose." The words dropped between us with a cold finality. I stared at him. The dishwasher's rhythm suddenly sounded too loud. "You think she deliberately lost her passport to get out of going?" I asked. He didn't meet my eyes. "The way she was so calm at the airport, the way she told you to just go, it felt planned." A silence stretched, not the comfortable kind, the kind that sits between people like a wall. "I know why she did it," he added quietly. "And I get it, I really do. But that doesn't mean it didn't cost us." I swallowed. "Why do you think she did it?" I asked. He finally looked up. For a second, I thought he was going to say everything I'd been too afraid to put into words. Instead, he exhaled and shook his head. "We'll talk about it later," he said. "I'm tired." He stood and took his mug to the sink, leaving the printout on the table, the total due circling in my mind like a buzz I couldn't turn off. Hannah's posts kept coming. A photo of both kids passed out in the stroller, faces flushed, hair damp with sweat. Caption: "Nobody told me parenting at Disneyland would be this hard. Some people just get to walk away when things get inconvenient, I guess." Another of her in front of the castle, sunglasses on, lips pressed in what she called a brave smile. "Making the best of it for my kids' sake, even though this trip got ruined before it began." Messages trickled in from extended family. Your older one posted about a rough vacation. "Everything okay?" I typed responses, then deleted them. The truth felt too messy to fit into a text box. At Sunday dinner the next week, my sister-in-law leaned across the table, spearing a carrot with her fork. "So, I heard Lily lost her passport," she said. "Kids these days, huh? So irresponsible." Lily's chair scraped softly on the tile. She dropped her gaze to her plate. "She made a mistake," I said. "We've all misplaced things." "Sure," my sister-in-law replied lightly. "But losing something that important? Some people would kill for a chance to go on a trip like that." The words slid across the table toward Lily like something oily. Greg cleared his throat. Hannah kept eating, saying nothing. The clink of cutlery filled the spaces where someone should have spoken up. I felt a familiar tightness creep into my chest, the same feeling I used to get standing under the fluorescent lights of the grocery store when a customer snapped their fingers for my attention. I thought of telling them all to stop, to leave her alone, to admit that maybe my daughter had done what I'd never had the courage to do, refuse to be used. But then Noah dropped his fork and Ava started fussing, and the moment passed in the shuffle of napkins and sippy cups. Little things started to collect, like dust in corners. Hannah joking that at least now she knew better than to count on Lily for serious responsibilities. Her laughing with a friend on the phone in my living room saying, "Yeah, apparently Mom and Lily needed a break from being useful." Her texting me a link to an article about helicopter parents with a winking emoji, as if I was the one doing too much. Each moment was small on its own, easy to explain away, but together they formed a slow, grinding erosion of something inside me. One afternoon, I went over to her house to drop off a casserole. The living room was a mess. Toys everywhere, cartoon voices filling the air. Hannah was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, feet up on the coffee table. "Hey," she said without looking up, "can you watch them for a couple hours? Sam and I need to run some errands. They'll just scream in the car." "I didn't plan on staying," I said. She finally glanced up. "You never plan on staying," she replied. "You just do. That's kind of your thing, isn't it?" The way she said it, light with that little twist of her mouth, stung more than if she'd yelled. It turned my years of showing up into a flaw. I set the casserole down. "I have things to do at home," I said. "Lily and I were—" "She can fend for herself," Hannah interrupted. "She's good at that." She stood, grabbed her keys. "We'll be back in a few hours. There are snacks on the counter. Try not to lose anything important while we're gone, okay?" She was out the door before I could form a reply. The last thing I saw was the tail lights of their car pulling away, leaving me alone in the chaos of their living room, the TV too loud, the air smelling faintly of old fries and spilled juice. Noah came over and leaned his head on my arm. "Grandma," he said, "are you mad?" I looked down at his trusting face and felt the answer stick in my throat. I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't sure yet what I was. That night, after I came home worn and smelling of someone else's house, Lily was at the table again, laptop open, notebook beside her. The soft kitchen light made shadows under her eyes. "How was your day?" she asked. I pulled out a chair. The wood scraped softly on the floor. "Busy," I said. "I ended up at your sister's." "Of course you did," she murmured. Something in her tone made me pause. "What does that mean?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time, then closed her laptop with a gentle click. "Nothing," she said. "It just means I knew you would." My chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with age. "Lily," I started. She stood, gathering her things. "I'm tired," she said. "I'm going to bed." When she walked past me, I caught a whiff of her shampoo, something clean and simple. The hallway light spilled onto the floor as she climbed the stairs. That same old nightlight, a small, glowing witness by the wall. For the first time in a long time, I realized that the quiet one in the family might not stay quiet forever. And when my phone buzzed again later, from Hannah this time, with a new complaint about how ungrateful people never learn, a thought I'd been pushing away finally settled in my mind, sharp and undeniable. If I kept letting them use me like this, I wasn't just losing pieces of myself. I was showing Lily exactly how to let other people take her apart too. Hannah's message came in while I was wiping down the counter. Since you and Lily caused all this extra spending, I expect you both to help cover the Disneyland costs. I'll send you the total tonight. A second one appeared instantly, like she'd been waiting for my screen to light up. Also, Sam and I need you to watch the kids this Saturday. Plan for the whole day. 2 demands, no questions, no space for me to exist as anything other than what she'd shaped me into years ago. I set the phone down slowly. The kitchen felt strangely hollow, the hum of the refrigerator louder than it should have been. In the hallway, the old nightlight glowed its tired amber, the same color it cast when my girls were small. Back then, I'd pick them up in the middle of the night, walk them in circles until their breathing steadied. No one carried me now. Lily walked in, rubbing her eyes. "You okay?" she asked. I pushed the phone toward her. "Read." She did. Her shoulders stiffened, the softness in her face sharpening into something cold. "She wants you to pay for her vacation," she said quietly, "and she assumes you'll give her a whole day of free childcare." "She's overwhelmed," I murmured, the old reflex kicking in. "Mom," Lily said, lowering the phone, "she's not overwhelmed. She's entitled." The word hit harder than I expected. I sat down at the table, the chair creaking under me. "I don't know how to stop it," I admitted. "I've spent so many years saying yes. I don't even know what no looks like." Lily slid into the seat across from me. "It looks like choosing yourself for once." I stared at her. She wasn't angry. She wasn't dramatic. She was simply done watching me disappear. "And it looks like not paying a dime for that trip," she added, "and keeping your Saturday." Her certainty startled me. Before I could respond, another message buzzed across the screen. "Mom, why aren't you answering? You owe us after ruining our vacation." Something inside me shifted. Not an explosion, more like a fault line quietly realigning itself. "I think I'm done," I whispered. Lily exhaled slowly, relief softening her expression. "Good," she said. "I've been waiting for you to say that." I hesitated, then asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since the airport. "Lily, did you really lose your passport?" She didn't flinch. "No," she said. "I didn't." The truth landed with a clarity that was almost painful. "Where is it?" I asked. "In my desk. Bottom drawer." "Why?" She swallowed. "Because I heard Hannah tell her friend that you and I were basically going to be full-time childcare at Disneyland so she and Sam could actually enjoy the park. I couldn't do it, Mom. Not again." I pressed a hand to my chest, not out of shock, but out of recognition. She'd reached her breaking point before I had. "I would have tried to talk you into going," I said. "I know," she replied gently. "That's why I didn't tell you." A floorboard creaked behind us. We turned. Greg stood halfway down the stairs, hair damp from the shower, holding something in his hand. A passport. Lily's. "I found this in your desk," he said quietly, coming closer. "I didn't touch it until now. I wanted to hear you say it yourself." Lily didn't defend herself. She just nodded, shoulders squared. Greg set the passport on the table. His eyes moved between us. "I'm not angry," he said. "But Hannah is already telling everyone this was your fault. All of it." "She always does," Lily murmured. I picked up the passport. Its weight felt disproportionate to its size, like it held every moment I'd let myself be pulled back into a role I no longer fit. "I'm not paying for that trip," I said slowly. And I'm not watching the kids on Saturday. Lily's eyes softened. Greg's shoulders eased. My phone buzzed again with a fresh notification from Hannah's newest post. Another rewrite of the narrative, another version where I was the cause of her hardship. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. If she's going to tell her story, I said, setting the phone down with new steadiness, then I need to be ready to tell mine. And just as the words left my mouth, my phone lit up again. This time, not with a post, but with a message that made all three of us lean in at once, the air tightening around us. The house felt different the morning after everything cracked open, too still, too orderly, like a place waiting for something to happen. I moved quietly through the kitchen, wiping down a counter that didn't need cleaning, the rag moving in small circles while my mind spun faster than my hands. Sunday was 2 days away. 2 days until Hannah walked through my door, expecting the same mother she'd always controlled, the one who smoothed over her rough edges and silently carried her burdens. But she wouldn't find her this time. She would find someone who was finally ready to put the pieces of the last 28 years in front of her, not as ammunition, but as truth. Greg came downstairs with a small stack of envelopes in his hand. He set them on the table with the kind of heaviness that didn't come from their weight. I pulled the ones I thought might matter, he said. We should go through them. We don't need to attack her, I reminded him. It was the sentence I kept repeating to steady myself, though half the time I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. We're not, he said. We're getting our facts straight. Lily joined us. Hair pulled into a messy knot, hoodie half-zipped. She carried her laptop under one arm. I backed up everything from yesterday, she said, opening it and turning the screen toward us. Messages, posts, timestamps. I made folders for each. The organization of it all should have made me feel small or exposed. Instead, it made me feel grounded. For years, every conflict with Hannah had ended with her controlling the narrative. If she cried, I apologized. If she accused, I explained. If she rewrote a memory, I doubted my own recollection. And always, I was the one who bent. Not this time. I sat down and pulled the first envelope toward me, a credit card statement. I scanned the charges, the familiar pattern beginning to emerge. Groceries, more groceries, takeout for 4, pharmacy runs, weekend expenses that I'd forgotten even had dates attached to them. I didn't track any of this, I murmured, tracing a finger down the page. I just kept juggling. You weren't supposed to track it, Lily said softly. You were supposed to absorb it. Her voice wasn't accusatory. It was simply a truth laid bare. I swallowed and reached for another statement, then another. Over and over, the pattern repeated. Periods where money tightened on their end, followed by a quiet rise in our household expenses. I had known the rhythm so long I'd learned not to question it. Mom, Lily said suddenly, tapping her screen, look at this. She pulled up a thread of messages from Hannah, dating back months. Requests disguised as expectations, babysitting framed as obligations, and little digs woven into the spaces between sentences. One caught my eye. You know I can't do this without you. You're the only one who ever shows up. On its own, the message sounded almost affectionate, but stacked alongside the rest, it took on a different tone, one less grateful and more manipulative. My throat tightened. Why didn't you show me these before? Lily hesitated. Because you were already drowning, she said. I didn't want to add to your guilt. I pressed the heel of my hand against my chest, a small attempt to keep my emotions from spilling into the room. I should have asked for help sooner. You didn't know you were allowed to, Greg said quietly. Something about that sentence made my breath catch. Allowed to, as if all these years I had been waiting for a permission slip that never came. I took a deep breath and reached for the shoebox I'd brought out the night before. The cardboard was frayed and soft at the corners. I lifted the lid and spilled its contents onto the table. Papers fluttered out. calendars marked with red ink, daycare forms with my number listed first, scribbled notes in Hannah's bold handwriting. When I peeled one from the stack, I recognized it instantly, a scrap of torn notebook paper, the edges jagged. Mom can do Saturday, she doesn't mind. I remembered the day. She'd been rushing out the door, kids crying, diaper bag unzipped, one shoe half on. She'd thrust the note at me like it was nothing, a casual arrangement she'd made on my behalf. The memory of that day had blurred over time. Now it sharpened into focus. I set the note aside and kept digging. Permission slips from school where I'd been listed as emergency contact, schedules for soccer practices, birthday party sign-up sheets. All the little responsibilities she'd assigned to me without asking, each one a small brick in the invisible structure of obligation I'd built around myself. Lily snapped a photo of the pile. "These matter," she said, "not because we're presenting them like evidence, but because she needs to see what she's asked of you." Greg nodded. "If she denies it, we're not arguing, we're showing." We spent the next hour sorting quietly. No raised voices, no anger, just deliberate movement. Each piece of paper felt like a shift in the air, a lightening of something I had carried for too long. At one point, Greg paused, holding a printed copy of a particularly harsh message from Hannah. "You don't have to show her everything," he said gently. "Only what tells the truth." I nodded. "I'm not trying to win," I said. "I'm trying to stop losing myself." We organized the documents into a simple chronological layout, not a formal presentation, just clarity. The more I saw laid out, the calmer I felt. The panic that usually surged whenever conflict with Hannah loomed wasn't there this time. Instead, there was an unfamiliar stillness in my chest, like my heart was finally settling into its rightful place. Around noon, I made lunch. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches and fruit. We ate in a quiet circle, the sound of forks tapping plates, the hum of the microwave cooling down. It felt almost ritualistic, a family preparing together for a conversation that had been decades in the making. After we finished eating, Lily pulled up one more screenshot. Hannah's newest post. She turned the laptop toward me. My breath caught for just a moment. It read, "Funny how some people can be smiling to your face while planning to abandon you. But God sees everything. Some betrayals come from places you least expect. Pray for clarity, betrayal, abandon. God sees everything." Her language wasn't random. It was strategic. She wasn't just venting. She was building a narrative for anyone who might side with her. She was preparing her own version of Sunday. A chill slid through me, subtle but unmistakable. "She's framing herself as the wounded one," Lily said. "Like you're the aggressor." "She believes this," I whispered. "She's convinced herself I hurt her deliberately." Greg leaned in. "Then we need to walk into Sunday ready. Not angry, not defensive, just steady. Steady." I repeated the word silently in my head. Steady. We cleaned up the table, placing the organized documents into a plain folder. No labels, no dramatics, just truth in a stack. As I slid the last paper inside, a quiet knock came at the front door. All three of us froze. No one had texted. No one had said they were coming. The timing was too strange, too close to everything we'd been planning. Greg rose slowly, his chair scraping softly beneath him. "Stay here," he said gently. But I was already standing, because something in me, the same instinct that had carried toddlers in the dark, soothed fevers at midnight, and navigated emotional storms for decades, felt a shift in the air. A shift that meant the conversation we were preparing for Sunday might be arriving sooner than expected. Greg reached the door. He pulled it open. And the look on his face told me everything before I even saw who was standing on the other side. Greg's face told me who was at the door before I even saw her. His jaw tightened, his hand still on the knob. "It's Hannah," he said quietly. "She's early." My heart did a small, hard jump. We hadn't cleaned the living room yet, hadn't rehearsed what to say, hadn't finished stacking the papers into something that looked less like a case and more like a story. But time didn't care. "It's okay," I said before I knew if it really was. "Let her in." He opened the door wider. Hannah stood on the porch, arms folded over her chest, sunglasses pushed up into her hair. Her expression was already set, wounded, defensive, angry. Behind her, I could see their car parked at the curb. The faint silhouettes of two small heads in the back seat and Sam staring straight ahead at the steering wheel. "So, this is what we're doing now?" she said, stepping inside without waiting to be invited. "Secret meetings, ambushes." Her perfume hit me first, sharp, floral, familiar. She'd worn the same scent when she was 16 and wanted to smell grown. It clung to the entryway as she brushed past Greg. "We asked you to come on Sunday," I said calmly. "You chose to come today." "I chose not to spend the rest of the weekend wondering what kind of attack you're planning," she shot back. "Sam's in the car with the kids. This won't take long." I glanced at Lily. She'd stood up from the table, lips pressed together, the laptop's glow still on her face. For a second, I saw her as a little girl again, peeking around doorways when Hannah and I fought about curfews and choices. "Let's sit down," I said, gesturing toward the living room. "We're not attacking you, Hannah. We just need to talk." She huffed but followed, dropping onto the couch like the room owed her cushioning. I took the armchair across from her. Greg sat at the end of the couch, leaving a few inches of space between them. Lily chose the other armchair, closer to me. Hannah's eyes flicked to the folder on the coffee table. "What is that?" she demanded. "You've been compiling evidence or something?" "It's not a trial," I said. "It's our history, ours, not just yours." She snorted. "You know what it looks like from my side? It looks like you've been sitting around all week trying to figure out how to make me the bad guy." I felt the old, automatic apology rise in my throat like a reflex. I swallowed it back down. "This isn't about making anyone the bad guy," I said. "It's about stopping a pattern that's hurting everyone." "Everyone?" She laughed, too sharp. "You mean Lily, because obviously she's the real victim here." Lily's fingers tightened on the arms of her chair, but she didn't speak. I reached for the folder, keeping my movement slow. "Before we talk," I said, "I need you to hear something clearly. I love you. You are my daughter. That hasn't changed." Her jaw worked. "Doesn't feel like it lately. And," I continued, "loving you doesn't mean I have to keep living like this." "Like what?" she snapped. "Like a grandmother who's occasionally inconvenienced?" The words stung, but they didn't knock me off balance the way they once would have. I opened the folder and laid out the first sheet, one of the credit card statements on the table between us. "We're going to walk through a few things," I said. "Not to shame you, not to score points, just so we're all standing in the same room instead of different stories." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, you're making this so dramatic." Greg leaned forward slightly. "Hannah," he said evenly, "you've been posting about us for days. You used words like betrayal and abandonment. That's dramatic. We've stayed quiet. This is us finally talking to you directly." Her mouth opened, then closed again. For a moment, her gaze wavered. I slid the statement closer. "Do you remember asking us to watch the kids last year so you and Sam could take that anniversary trip?" I asked. She frowned. "What does that have to do with Disneyland?" "Just answer," I said gently. "Yes," she said. "Of course I remember." "You said money was tight," I went on, "that the trip was already paid for, but everything else was going to be a stretch. You asked if we could help where we could." "Do you remember that part?" She shrugged. "Yeah. So, that's what family does." "Do you know what we did?" Greg asked. He tapped the paper. "We covered groceries for your kids while you were gone. We bought extra food. We paid for takeout when they melted down and wouldn't eat what we'd planned. We drove them to practice. We filled your gas tank before you picked them up." Her eyebrows arched. "I didn't ask you to do all that." "That's the point," I said quietly. "You don't ask. You assume." Hannah shifted on the couch. So now you're keeping score? No, I said. We're showing you that what feels invisible to you has been heavy for us. Lily reached for her laptop and turned it toward Hannah. And it's not just money, she said. It's the story you tell about it. On the screen was Hannah's latest post, the one about betrayal, about family ditching her with 2 toddlers. Hannah's own profile photo stared back at her from the top corner. Her face flushed. That wasn't about you, she said quickly. Who was it about? Lily asked. People, Hannah snapped. In general. You mentioned Disneyland, Greg said. You mentioned your own family ditching you. That's pretty specific. Hannah's gaze darted between the screen and our faces. If the shoe fits, she muttered. Something inside me hardened, not into anger, but into resolve. Show her the message, I said to Lily. She clicked to another window and pulled up the text thread, the one where Hannah had told her she'd humiliated them at the airport, called her selfish, accused her of walking away. We didn't read them out loud, we just let her see them. Somewhere in the middle of the thread, I watched her eyes flick across a line that must have hit differently now that she knew we had all seen it. You and Mom owe us for that trip. Her teeth grazed her bottom lip. This is all out of context, she said finally. You're twisting it. We're not twisting anything, I said. These are your words. You're acting like I'm some monster, she exploded, voice rising. Do you have any idea how hard my life is? 2 kids, 1 income that actually matters, a husband who's exhausted, a house that never stays clean. You think I post because I want attention? I post because I don't have anyone to lean on. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Hannah, I said softly, you've had me to lean on. For years. That's part of the problem. I have carried so much for you that you don't even see it anymore. She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. When you drop the kids off for just an hour, that turns into 5, I continued. When you list me as the first contact on school forms without asking. When you plan trips counting on me and Lily as your free childcare. When you send bills and say we owe you. That's not leaning on family. That's using us. The word hung there. Using. Lily flinched. Greg looked down at his hands. Hannah's eyes flashed, then went flat. You're my mother, she said. What did you think that meant? That I'd never need you? That you'd get to clock out when I turned 18? No, I said. I thought it meant I'd help you when you needed it. I didn't realize you'd build your life assuming I had no needs of my own. She laughed once, bitter. You're being so dramatic. Lily spoke up then, her voice steady. It's not dramatic to say we're tired, she said. I'm 17, Hannah, and I knew that trip was going to turn me into your nanny for a week. Hannah snapped her head toward her. There it is, she said. You couldn't just help your family? You had to sabotage everything? Lily didn't flinch. I protected myself, she said, from something you never bothered to ask whether I wanted in the first place. You lied, Hannah shot back. You lied to our faces. And you lied to Mom, Lily replied. You told her you were just going to Disneyland at the same time. You didn't tell her you'd already decided she and I were your full-time childcare. That's not... I heard you, Lily cut in. On the phone. You said, it'll be perfect. Mom and Lily will basically be our full-time childcare so Sam and I can actually enjoy the park. The sentence fell into the room with a weight that silenced everyone. Hannah's face drained of color, then flushed dark. You were eavesdropping on my private conversation, she demanded. You had the speaker on in our kitchen, Lily said. You were standing 6 feet away. You weren't being private. You were being careless. For a moment, the only sound was the faint buzz of the living room lamp and the distant rumble of a car driving past the house. Then I said the thing that had been growing in my chest since the airport. I love your children, I told Hannah, but I will not sacrifice your sister to the same life I barely survived. The room went utterly still. Even the air seemed to pause. Hannah stared at me like I'd slapped her. "What is that supposed to mean?" she whispered. "It means," I said, voice low but unwavering, "I am done teaching my daughters that love equals erasing yourself. I did that for you. I will not let you turn around and demand it from Lily as if it's her duty." Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't soften her expression. They sharpened it. "So that's it," she said. "I'm the villain, the selfish daughter who ruined everything. You get to be the martyr again." "I'm not a martyr," I said quietly. I was a young mother who thought the only way to prove my love was to give until I disappeared. "And now you're punishing me for it," she said. "I'm not punishing you," I replied. "I'm stopping the part where you punish us." She let out a harsh breath and stood abruptly. "This is unbelievable," she said, pacing a tight circle. "You all sat here and built a case against me. You went through my posts, my messages, my life. You're acting like I haven't done anything for you." "You have," I said. "You've given us grandchildren we adore. You've shared holidays and birthdays and moments I treasure. None of this is about erasing the good. It's about naming what's not okay." "What's not okay," she said, rounding on me, "is a mother choosing her peace over her grandkids." The sentence cut deep because she meant it as a knife. I steadied my voice. "What's not okay," I answered, "is a daughter using her children as leverage to keep her mother in line." Her lips parted, eyes blazing. "Is that what you really think of me?" "I think," I said slowly, "you're exhausted, overburdened, and terrified of feeling alone. And instead of facing that, you've decided it's easier to turn me into the enemy when I stop giving you everything you ask for." Silence again. Then Greg spoke, his voice rough. "We are not cutting you off," he said. "We are not abandoning you. But things are changing. No more assuming we'll take the kids every time you want us to. No more trips built on the idea of free childcare. No more posts about us without talking to us first. And no more bills sent with the word "oh" attached." "That's not your call," she snapped. "It is," he said firmly. "It's our life." She looked from him to me to Lily, eyes bright with anger. "So what, you think you're going to tell the whole family your little version and make me look crazy?" she asked. "You think they're going to believe you over me?" I felt a strange calm settle over me. "I'm not interested in dragging anyone into this," I said. "But if you keep posting about us like we're heartless, I will tell the truth. Not to shame you, to protect us." Hannah shook her head in disbelief. "You'd turn people against me." "I won't have to," I said. "Your own words will speak for themselves." Tears finally spilled over, streaking her mascara. She swiped at them, furious. "If you go through with this," she said, each word clipped, "if you keep saying I'm using you, if you refuse to help when we need it, then don't expect to see my kids anymore." Lily sucked in a breath. Greg went still beside her. My heart lurched, but my voice stayed steady. "You would keep my grandchildren from me because I won't let you use me?" I asked. Her chin lifted. "I will do whatever I have to do to protect my family." She meant her family, not ours. The distinction sliced through me. We stared at each other, two women with the same eyes, standing on opposite sides of a line I'd drawn for the first time in my life. Somewhere outside, a car door opened and closed. One of the kids called something faint through the open window. The sound floated into the tense living room like a reminder of everything at stake. Hannah wiped her face with the back of her hand. "You have until tomorrow to decide what you're going to tell people," she said. "Because I'm done being painted as the bad guy in your little martyr story." She turned toward the door, her shoulders straight, every step a threat and a plea twisted together. And as I watched my daughter reach for the doorknob, the question that had terrified me for years finally rose in my chest, cold and clear. Was I willing to lose access to my grandchildren in order to stop losing myself? She left the door half open when she walked out, careless, hurried, the way someone leaves when they're too angry to look back. The cold air pushed into the living room in a slow wave, brushing against my arms before Greg rose to close it. When the latch clicked, the house settled into a stillness I hadn't felt in years. No voices, no demands, no footsteps running toward me with lifted arms or running away from me with blame. Just quiet. I sank into the armchair, the one that had molded itself to my shape over the years. Lily sat across from me, her legs tucked under her, watching me with an expression that made her look both older and younger than she was, like she understood more of my heart than I'd ever intended her to carry. Greg stood behind my chair for a moment, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was warm, not punishing. A room could hold two kinds of quiet, I realized, the kind that crushed you and the kind that let you breathe again. This was the second kind. I don't want to lose them, I finally said, the words catching slightly. The kids, I don't want to lose them. You're not losing them, Greg murmured. You're losing the version of Hannah that expected you to disappear for her. And losing that, Lily added softly, might be the only way you get yourself back. I pressed my fingers to the center of my chest, lightly, instinctively. There was no tightening now, just a strange, fragile ache, a release that felt too large for the room. For the first time in my adult life, I had said no to my eldest daughter and lived through it. And the sky hadn't fallen, the walls hadn't cracked, the world hadn't ended. But something inside me had shifted forever, like an old hinge finally loosening, the door it held swinging toward sunlight for the first time in decades. We cleaned the coffee table in silence. The papers went back into the folder, neatly, carefully, not as evidence anymore, but as reminders of why this moment mattered. We put the folder in the drawer where the warranties and tax folders lived. It felt strangely symbolic, filing away the past in a place where it couldn't spill into every corner of my life. Later, when the house dimmed and the hallway nightlight glowed its small amber pool across the carpet, I stood there longer than usual. I let that soft gold color wash over me. It hit me how many nights I'd walked past it carrying something heavier than a tired child. Fear, obligation, exhaustion, guilt disguised as love. But tonight it felt different. Like the same light that once meant duty now meant permission. A softer kind of clarity, a warm reminder that I was allowed to reclaim the pieces of myself I had handed away too easily. "Mom?" Lily's voice came from behind me. "You okay?" I turned to her, and for once, I didn't pretend. "I think so," I said. "More okay than I've been in a long time." She stepped close and slipped her arms around me, her forehead against my shoulder. I held her tightly, realizing she wasn't just my daughter. She had become the witness to my return to myself. When Greg joined us, wrapping us both in his arms, I felt something settle inside, a sense of belonging that didn't come from sacrifice, but from being seen. The three of us stood there in the narrow light of the hallway, and for a moment the house felt full again, not with demands or expectations, but with something far simpler. Peace. A quiet, earned peace. Much later, after the lights were off and the hum of the night settled around us, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, the steam curled upward like a small prayer. On the counter beside me lay the old nightlight, the same one I'd replaced years ago but kept tucked away for reasons I never fully explained. I picked it up, feeling its plastic edges under my thumb. That nightlight had once burned through long, sleepless years, reminding me that someone needed me. Now it reminded me that I needed myself. If my story touched something in you, let me know. Sometimes, speaking our truth for the first time feels less frightening when someone else says, "I understand." And if you've ever had to choose between losing yourself and losing someone you love, I'm listening. Tell me what part of my story stayed with you.